Hello, everybody, and welcome into Kicking It with Kyle. That's right, I'm actually dressed nice today because we have a serious show here today. That's right, it's the holiday season because it is NFL draft season. So we're not going to waste any time. I'm here with Alex Brooks, and we're going to hop right in with pick number 1, the Carolina Panthers. And Brooks, well, contrary to my personal beliefs, I think that they're going to take the Carolina Panthers. I think they take C.J. Stroud number 1.
C.J. Stroud number 1? Oh, really?
I'm going with C.J. Stroud
Why?
as the number 1 overall
Why?
pick. Well, as much as I think Bryce Young should be, I think Carolina's just going to go with it. I mean, take a look at his season stats. He had the second highest QBR in college football. He was behind none other than only Bryce Young.
Yeah.
So, I mean, solid pick, I think.
Yeah, it's a solid pick. But contrary to your pick, I am taking Bryce Young, the quarterback out of Alabama, instead of C.J. Stroud. I'm hearing a lot of things regarding C.J. Stroud being the number 1 pick, and he's going to be the guy for Carolina. But Bryce Young is meeting with the Panthers soon. So I think he's going to impress, and I think he's going to be the number 1 pick because he is the true number 1 pick in this draft.
I mean, people say the same thing that they said a few years ago about Kyler Murray and the hand size. That was a big thing with Bryce Young going into the draft. But speaking of Bryce Young, I got him going at number 2 to the Houston Texans. Although I personally believe he should be the number 1 overall pick, I think he'll go at number 2. Look at his season stats. Outstanding. 3,328 yards, 32 touchdowns through the air. I mean, Alabama's quarterback, he had a great season. Obviously, the Crimson Tide didn't end up where they wanted to be. They fell short of the national championship, but it wasn't because of Bryce Young. He had an outstanding season.
No, definitely. I mean, that's why I picked him number 1. But I'm going with C.J. Stroud, so we kind of flip-flopped there.
Flipped him a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. So C.J. Stroud I am taking for my second pick, going to the Houston Texans. I mean, both of these teams need a quarterback. We know that. They're both in divisions where they weren't really competing that much. The Panthers traded up with the Bears. Now they are going to be the number 1 pick. But the Texans, any one of these quarterbacks are going to help them out, and it's going to be important for them. Yeah,
I mean, both teams are very quarterback needed. And moving on to our third pick, a team that's not so quarterback needed, but maybe they do because the Call of Duty season does start around November. That's the Arizona Cardinals.
Little plug there.
Will Anderson is going to be my 3rd overall pick in this year's draft. I think if you're the Cardinals, he's just too good of a player to pass up on. He is a generational talent, one of the best edge rushers college football has seen. I mean, 10 sacks from an edge rusher, 24 solos. I don't see how you can take anybody else. He's a game changer. You just lost your star linebacker and Chandler Jones. He went to the Raiders. You got to fill that spot. Who better to do it with than you got Will? You got Will Anderson Jr.
Yeah, I mean, other than Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, he is the best overall prospect in this draft. Will Anderson, as I agreed with you, he is going to be the number 3 pick for the Arizona Cardinals. You just lost J.J. Watt to retirement. You need someone off the edge, and Will Anderson will be that guy.
Yeah, without a doubt. And moving on to pick number 4 in the draft. Well, this is where me and Brooks really start to disagree with each other. I'm going with Tyree Wilson, an edge rusher out of Texas Tech. And the reason I'm going with this is,
it's a really good pick.
The Colts do need a quarterback yet. The Colts need defense a lot more than they need a quarterback, honestly. I think this is a year where you can pass on. Yeah, they're going to pass on Anthony Richardson. Colts are still going to suck. Who comes in the draft next year? Caleb Williams.
That is definitely true, but I'm still picking Anthony Richardson. I mean, this is a top quarterback in this draft. This is a quarterback-heavy draft, and the Colts really need someone to lead their franchise. They've been stuck with Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, all of these one-year bridge quarterbacks. They need someone to build around that franchise, and the Eagles' offensive coordinator, Shane Steichen, will pick Anthony Richardson.
And now moving on to the rainy city of Seattle. Adam, this one's for you, my little brother. I hope your draft night sucks. I think you're going to go with the lineman in Paris Johnson out of Ohio State. I know, this is a big shocker. Geno Smith's the quarterback. They did just sign him for a 2-year extension. That's not your career guy. But, I mean, Paris Johnson, 6'6", 310 pounds. The guy was a brick wall at Ohio State. Nobody was getting across the line to get to either Justin Fields or C.J. Stroud when they both played there. I mean, Johnson, you gotta build up an O-line before you can get a good QE prospect in there. the line's the most important part. I think Johnson's a great pick.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely need someone to protect Geno Smith. I mean, Geno Smith did really well this season, but I'm going to go with Jalen Carter. He's had some off-the-field issues, but he is still one of the top defensive interior linemen in this draft, so I'm going to go with Jalen Carter out of Georgia in that big Georgia defense just to make that Seattle defense back to where it was back in the 2013-2014.
And right back to another defensive player, going to the Detroit Lions at number 6. I've got Christian Gonzalez out of the University of Oregon, a cornerback. The Lions, they're really in need of a defensive back, and look at that, 4 interceptions, 35 solo tackles. He's arguably the best defensive back in the draft this year. How can you not go with him, in my opinion?
I mean, how can you not? I mean, the Lions have to be very important on going with Christian Gonzalez. I agree with you, Kyle. He was at Oregon, and he has a long frame, and he is really going to do well in that Detroit Lions defense. You lost Darius Slay a couple years ago. You need someone on the outside in that really tough division to compete for an NFC North championship.
Yeah, I mean, most people would go with the quarterback for him, but I think with Jared Goff, they can hold off another year or two. They had a good offensive run towards the end last year, but that's enough of the Lions. They're a team that nobody cares about anyways. Going to where all the money is, Las Vegas. That's right. This episode is sponsored by Kyle Sportsbooks. Don't donate. Bet $10 and it will go straight into my wallet. Anyways, the Las Vegas Raiders, got them going with Broderick Jones out of the University of Georgia. I mean, you got to go offensive line again. Just a giant, 6'4", 310. Great player, held up for Stetson Bennett in their last 2 natty runs. That's a tell of tales right there. You win 2 natties on the offensive line, you're a solid blocker. You're a solid lineman.
Yeah, I mean, offensive lineman is going to be really crucial for the Raiders, but I'm going to go with defense here with Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech, the edge. The Raiders have tried with offensive linemen in the past. They haven't really been able to hit on the first round. So an edge rusher in Tyree Wilson will really help them out for that Raiders defense against Pat Mahomes.
And going back down to Houston, because they got 2 picks, reminder that they got extra picks from their trade from Deshaun Watson over to the Cleveland Browns. So going with,
we're at the Falcons.
This was the Falcons. I jumped way ahead. I am so sorry. Jalen Carter. We are going with Jalen Carter to the Atlanta Falcons. I jumped so far ahead. My apologies. I looked at the spreadsheet wrong. But staying right down in Georgia, moving about 30 minutes west from Athens over to Atlanta, will be Jalen Carter, in my opinion. I know you want to see him on Philly, but I think he goes at 9, not because he's not a top 5 talent. I think the off the field issues have hindered him.
I mean, definitely. He's going to be dropping in this draft, but I'm going to pick Devon Witherspoon. He is going to be the second corner off of the board for in this draft. I feel like they're going to really do well with Devon Witherspoon. A cross of A.J. Terrell is going to be really good in that secondary.
And now my favorite part of the draft, we finally get to our first wide receiver going off the board. For the Chicago Bears at number 9, I got him taking Jackson Smith-Njigba. I mean, the guy is unreal. He's probably the best receiver in my opinion. He did miss the last season due to injury, but his 2021 stats, look at that. I mean, he had almost 2,000 yards. He had nearly 100 receptions. He had a 345-yard receiving game in the Rose Bowl. Yep. He had 345 yards in one game receiving.
Oh, yeah. I'm not going to pick him until a little later in this draft, but I'm going to go, you can't really go with a wide receiver until you build up that offensive line for Justin Fields. Peter Skoronski, the offensive lineman out of Northwestern, is going to be this pick. You need to protect Fields in a really loaded division.
And speaking on a loaded division, going to the NFC East, which a little bit of competition there, not much. The Giants aren't anything too crazy, but your Philadelphia Eagles have pick number 10. And I got him going with Myles Murphy personally, Brooks. I mean, I know we had different ideas, but a defensive end, they're looking to beef up the defense again after last year's Super Bowl. A solid pick out of Clemson, 10 sacks on the year. That's a big boost to your defense if you're the Eagles.
Well, I'm going to put on my Eagles cap right now because I am
Get him off the screen.
Nolan
Take the other camera
Smith
off.
right
Take the
here.
camera off him.
Yeah. Nolan Smith out of Georgia. He is going to be paired with his former teammate Jordan Davis, and that defensive line is going to be scary as ever. Let's go back to the Super Bowl, baby. Let's go.
Well, we can finally move on past things I don't care about, a.k.a. the Eagles. But Tennessee Titans, what are they going to do? I'm going to say they got to beef off the line. They're going to go with Peter Skoronski. I'm taking him two picks after Brooks here. Just an absolute unit, 6'4", 315, a huge boost to the line for the Titans if they can get that. And that's maybe you can start working on Malik Willis if you get a line boosted. Brooks, how about you?
I mean, I'm going to go with offensive line as well. I believe it's going to be Paris Johnson Jr. just a couple picks after you picked him. I think he's just going to be the second lineman off the board. I mean, for the Tennessee Titans, they need an offensive line help.
And now I get back to the point I was talking about earlier with the Houston Texans getting their pick from the Cleveland Browns at pick number 12. I have them taking the former Blitznikov winner, Jordan Addison. I mean, the guy proved himself. He had a great season with Kenny Pickett last year. And then this last season that just happened, he goes out, balls out with Caleb Williams. Season ended a bit early to injury, but was still one of the top players in the league in college football and one of the highest touchdown scoring receivers, given that he did miss nearly half the season.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to need weapons on that offense for the Houston Texans, but I believe they're going to go with Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa, an edge rusher, and they're going to beef up that defense in Houston.
And moving on, now the New York Jets are on the clock, and I got them taking a pick you chose a bit earlier with cornerback Devon Witherspoon. I think that the Jets, they're going to look to boost up the defense a little bit. As great as Witherspoon is, and he could go higher, I just think that the way things are going to fall, it makes the most sense for the Jets to pick him up. I mean, they got Sauce Gardner. Their wide receiver core is good. Aaron Rodgers, is he coming? Is he not? Who knows? But defense is a must, so.
Yeah, defense is a must, but for this Jets team, you're getting Aaron Rodgers. You need to protect him. Broderick Jones, an offensive tackle out of Georgia, would be the perfect pick for the New York Jets for Rodgers and that offense that is going to be humming with number 12.
And now at number 14, we get a little bit of a crossover event. I get happy in two kinds of ways here. As the New England Patriots, that's right, my New England Patriots, who do I predict them taking? Who do the pros predict them taking? That's right, Penn State defensive back Joey Porter Jr., number 9 from State College, Pennsylvania. Outstanding season, just lockdown. No touchdowns could be scored on this man. Lockdown. No fly zone anywhere near him, and he was great on the tackles too, over 30 solo tackles on the season.
I mean, give me a fist bump there.
Like, come on.
I mean, we agreed on that pick. Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State. I mean, you know, agreeing on that Patriots pick, it's got to happen. As you mentioned, shutdown corner for Penn State, and it helps Kyle's Patriots get that much better on defense.
And now, Brooks, I'm sorry to say, but your time has been winding down a little bit. This is our last pick here. Together, the Green Bay Packers, you know, they need a receiver. I think we both agree that they need a receiver. We went a little bit of different ways. I'm going with SMU's Rashee Rice, who had the most yards receiving in college football this last season and led receptions as well. 96 receptions this year, 10 touchdowns, and 1,300 yards, all while being at a very small school in SMU.
Yeah, I picked Jackson Smith-Njigba out of Ohio State to be that pick for the Packers. I mean, he's the best wide receiver on the board for my mock draft, and he's going to help out Jordan Love and that offense with Christian Watson as well.
I can't believe you have him going after I have 2 receivers going.
Hey,
he is the best, but he's going higher than that. But since that was such a bad take, Brooks, get off my side. Joyce, it's your time. It's time for Mr. Joyce to get his. It's time for Joyce to get his.
Yeah, I made the seat warm for you.
Joyce has got to get his 30 seconds of fame in here now. Mr. Joyce.
But happy to be here.
Of course. So let's not waste any time because we don't got time to waste, really. Washington Commanders, you know, I have a graphic up here that's about to come on screen. You can roll the graphic, but I actually changed my pick.
Ooh.
I'm going with Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee. I think, yes, Hendon is 25. He is a bit older. He's got that age on him, like Stetson Bennett. But, I mean, the guy was straight. Oh, no, I did make the graphic correct. There we go. Perfect. Highest QBR in college football, 3,000 yards through the air, 27 touchdowns. And that's to mention he missed the last 3 games of the season because of a torn ACL.
Yeah, I don't know. I picked Matthew Mayer as that pick for the Commanders. I feel like the Commanders should ride with Sam Howell this year. Next year's a big QB draft. You have Drake May, Caleb Williams. Just give the Commanders another weapon. They have Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin. They're really lacking other weapons. So I think Matt Mayer, he's a dynamic receiver out of Notre Dame. Pick him.
Yeah, solid points there. And moving on after the Commanders, the Steelers are back on the boards. And I got a receiver going again. It's going to be a heavy receiver draft, I think. They got really good talent. Quentin Johnston out of TCU is going to go at a number, if I could count, 18, I believe, 17 that is. 60 receptions on the year, 1,000 yards, a national championship appearance. He was really the main leg of how they got there with Duggan throwing it to him as well. So I think he's a perfect pick for the Steelers. Get some more depth around Pickett for receivers.
Yeah, he's definitely a dynamic player. I have him going a little bit later in this draft, but he's a player that led TCU to that championship game. I have Matthew Bergeron, a little of a homer pick, Syracuse guy. I think young quarterback Kenny Pickett gives someone who can protect the young quarterback and be a offensive lineman for the future.
Yeah, no. Anybody that can beef up the line is a solid pick for a young quarterback. Now the Detroit Lions, they got another pick in this one. I think they're going to address defense twice in this draft. I have them going with Brian Branch, safety out of Alabama. 58 solo tackles on the year, 2 interceptions. That is just unreal. One of the best safety in college football. I think Detroit, I talked about them a little bit earlier, they got to beef up their defense, I think. Going with a safety and a corner is a solid first round for them.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I have Bijan Robinson out of Texas. He's just really a playmaker.
Okay.
Last year they had a little bit of trouble. DeAndre Swift had a couple issues with the Lions.
Jamal Williams,
a couple guys. I hate taking running backs early personally in the draft, but he's a big playmaker. Over 1,000 yards on the ground after contact. Broke 104 tackles last year. I think this Lions team's on the come up and draft a bigger dynamic player here for the future.
I mean, I'm kind of going to piggyback off you on that one, Joyce, because to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I have who else but Bijan Robinson going at number 19 to the Bucs, as I just mentioned. 6.1 yards a carry, 1,500 yards and 18 touchdowns as a running back. Unreal. That is unreal. And like you said, 104 broken tackles. He could not be brought down. He's quick and he's jacked at the same time. He's a freight train.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who's going to go in that range, 17-21 range. I actually have Will Levis going to the Bucs.
Really?
I feel like everything I've seen from Baker, he stinks. They think he's going to be a franchise guy. He is terrible at football, so bad at football.
Really?
I think
opinions on Baker, huh?
Yeah, I think Tom Brady's gone. You have to have a young
Brady's
quarterback, have a young guy come in. I think Will Levis is a guy who has the potential in this NFL draft, and recently we've just seen the potential guys go. I think Will Levis, with the right system, can be a guy for the future.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think he'll drop out of this round just because of the other quarterback talent. But the Seattle Seahawks are next on the board after the Bucs. Again, their second pick in this first round. I went with an offensive tackle the first time in Paris Johnson. This time I think they'll get Jalen Hyatt. I think they're going to go out. It makes the most sense for me. I mean, you already have DK Metcalf, who's a great route runner and is going to draw a ton of attention to him. Jalen Hyatt, people talk about his route running, not the greatest. He's a solid route runner. He's one of the leading receivers. He took down Bama nearly single-handedly when it comes to receiving. And the guys, they say he can only run a fade. If you can only run a fade, if you have DK Metcalf taking 3 defensive backs' attention and you can run a fade and burn that back, you're fine. I think it's a great pick for the Seahawks.
Yeah, I think the Seahawks just need weapons. They need somebody. DK Metcalf's obviously the number one guy. I went with Quentin Johnston, a guy who just picked a couple picks ago. Personally, he's one of the most athletic guys in this draft, any position. I think you need another guy. You have Tyler Lockett. He's in his 30s now, an older guy. I think you need to find another guy who can pair up with DK Metcalf and be that dynamic receiver on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. And a pick that we both agree on, something that doesn't happen very often here on Kicking It with Kyle. We both have going to the Los Angeles Chargers, Zay Flowers out of Boston College. Boston College, not a huge football powerhouse, but I mean 78 receptions, 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns. You can't deny those stats. The dude was dominant all year round. I mean, just a fantastic player out of BC, and I think he's a good receiver that can really add some depth to the Chargers. They're going to need the receivers with Mike Williams getting old, and Keenan Allen's just not there anymore. You got to get somebody for Herbert.
I mean, you just got to have someone who's healthy. Dude, this Chargers team, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, these guys can't stay healthy on the field. You just need to give Herbert, a young guy, a bunch of weapons because his windows now, we've seen it. This guy is playing incredible football, Justin Herbert. Just find a guy who can stay in the field and be that nice slot receiver this Chargers team's really missing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. But next up is the Baltimore Ravens. Given all their Lamar struggles, I'm interested to see with why you went with your pick here. I went with Cam Smith, defensive back out of South Carolina. Just a solid player all year long. Really good on the back end. He shut down some crucial teams like Clemson in South Carolina's win over them, and Tennessee. He shut down Jalen Hyatt, as I mentioned earlier, great receiver. But Smith, he's just a lockdown defender, plays really tight on the ball, doesn't allow many receptions, doesn't allow many touchdowns to get behind him. But you went with the receiver. Why is that? Given all the Lamar stuff, why is that?
Yeah, I don't know. The Ravens are a pretty interesting team. I think you just need to get Lamar weapons, and they pick up Odell, which another story. You got overpaid for that. But Jordan Addison, he's a guy who just makes plays. He's a smaller guy, a little slot guy. I feel like the Ravens work well with a slot guy. And you have Mark Andrews, Odell Beckham. Odell's a little past his prime. Finding a young guy that maybe Lamar can find a connection with, Jordan Addison, who makes big plays, has made big plays at Pittsburgh and USC. I think he's a good fit here in Baltimore. You can go many different ways with this pick. I think many of the experts don't know where to go with this, but I think finding him another weapon could convince him to stick around longer and build connection with a young guy like Jordan Addison.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, he's about getting his bag, but if you don't got anybody to work with, then you got to go with whatever. So we took a little bit too much time on that one, so we can skip Minnesota if we want. Actually, no, we're going to go with it. Minnesota Vikings, I got them taking Keely Ringo, cornerback out of the University of Georgia. Huge plays in the national championship against Alabama, the game-winning interception pick 6 in 2021, and he was the one that delivered the big hit on Marvin Harrison Jr. in the semifinal game against Ohio State. So, I mean, other than to say he's a hard hitter, what you got for the Vikings?
Yeah, for the Vikings, I have defense. I think I took Deontay Banks, from Maryland. The Vikings just need cornerbacks. They have a lot of young guys. Andrew Booth got drafted last year. Akaib Evans got drafted last year too, but they just don't have that one guy on the defensive end who can make plays. And I think this Vikings team, offensively, you got Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins. I think defensively, just sharpening up that cornerback role and having that number one guy, because they're kind of lacking that right now defensively and on the secondary side of the ball.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. So the Jacksonville Jaguars, moving on to them, we both have another similar pick with Brian Breezy. I'll let you take the reins on this one first, Joyce. How come we managed to choose the same guy here?
Yeah, he just played at Clemson, great program. He's played in a lot of big games, played national championship games. This year, 24 pressures on 203 pass rushing snaps. That really steps out. A guy who I feel like the Jaguars are becoming Clemson U, ETN, Trevor Lawrence, a bunch of guys, but he's just played in big games, and defensively, they need that edge rusher, that guy who can make big plays, and I think Brian Breezy, I'd like to hear your explanation too, but he just can make big plays for the Jaguars defense.
No, I'm with you on that one. Just a really good outside edge rusher, and that's something that the Jaguars need. They've been trying to their offense has been looking decent. I mean, we saw them make a run in the playoffs last year. It's that defense they really got to boost up, strengthen it. If you get a good edge rusher, the more pressure you can put on a quarterback, that's less reliance you have to put on your defensive backs and your offense in return. So if you can get a good edge rusher that does get as many pressures on the quarterback as they do, like Breezy, that's a solid pick right there. But moving on, the New York Giants, I got Deontay Banks going to them. You took him a few picks ago. You got Hyatt. I took Hyatt a few picks ago. How come you're leaning with Hyatt going so late?
Yeah, I feel like the theme of this draft is just getting quarterback weapons. Last year, the slot guy for the Giants was Richie James. Richie James is not really the go-to slot guy. Jalen Hyatt just came out of nowhere, not really a highly recruited guy. He won the Bilenkoff Award this year and voted unanimous All-American, set a bunch of records. I think just getting a guy, you have Slayton, you have a bunch of guys you have Waller now as a Giants. I just think finding a guy who could fit in that slot role just help Danny Jones out. And just make plays. And I think he's the right guy to do it, Jalen Hyatt.
Yeah, I mean, solid receiver, a lot of speed, intelligent receiver too, knows how to get in the gap, cut the corners, get open, and get the ball to him, which Daniel Jones will be able to do now that he's progressed over the last couple of years, and he's not complete trash. But the Dallas Cowboys, I haven't taken Kalijah Kancey. You got Dalton Kincaid. I think that at this point, Cowboys just got to focus on lines at this point.
That's fair. I think just getting that weapon it's really been a theme. Just getting that weapon, Dak Prescott. They really haven't had a good tight end since Jason Witten. Dalton Kincaid dropped 2 of his 93 targets last season. I think just making Zeke's gone now, just getting some more weapons for Dak Prescott is just the guy to go to. Have that tight end, that go-to guy in third down.
No, I mean, you got a good point there. It's just Zeke didn't pan out like they wanted him to. Dak's been struggling in the playoffs. You got to get that offensive momentum going. Their defense is pretty solid as it is. But moving on, my personal least favorite team in the NFL now. That's right, the Bills. I don't know. I hate Buffalo with a burning passion. But they're going to go with Lucas Van Ness, in my opinion. Defensive end. He's got 18 solo tackles, 6.5 sacks on the year. Not a game changer, like a groundbreaking player. But, I mean, at this point in the round, you lost some big players like Tremont Edwards in free agency. You got to get some defensive pressure back. Your offense has been solid. Get a receiver in free agency. Don't go waste the draft pick on it.
Yeah, I went with Darnell Wright, O-lineman out of Tennessee. I think at this point, you just got to keep your quarterback healthy, Josh Allen, and just beef up that offensive line and make plays. Only allowed 8 pressures last year, and just get Josh Allen the help he needs.
All right. So going on to the Bengals now. Obviously, Joe Burrow has had his struggles in the playoffs the last couple of years because his offensive line has been injured when it gets down the late stretch. But he made a Super Bowl and he made a conference championship still. So given that, I have him going with Isaiah Foskey because they need a line. They need to protect Joe Burrow more than anything. It is essential to make sure Burrow stays healthy, 1, and 2, he actually has enough time to throw the ball.
I went with Darnell Washington, monster tight end, 6'7", big red zone threat. I think the Bengals have so many weapons on offense. Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, so many guys. I think having that dynamic tight end who's a big red zone threat, 6'7", is going to be big for Joe Burrow coming in the playoffs and winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah, that vertical threat will be huge. Now, the New Orleans Saints, Turgeon's team, I got them going with Nolan Smith. You got Keon Wright. I mean, we're a bit time constrained, so we'll rush through this one, but why'd you go with who you got?
Yeah, he's just a big edge rusher, make plays there in New Orleans.
Yeah, no, solid. All right, moving on. Philadelphia, we're down to our last 2 teams now. The Philadelphia Eagles, their second pick. I got them going with Zach Carbonet because they just lost Miles Sanders to the Carolina Panthers. They're going to need to replace that rushing game. And Carbonet, just at UCLA, a dog. I believe he had 2 200-yard rushing games, and it just ran through everybody, destroyed the Pac-12 on the ground. Nobody could stop him. Just shifty, has really good jukes where he can make a move. He can cut quick, fast. He doesn't lose his balance, and he's got that speed to bounce to the outside.
Yeah, I took a guy he can go from the 8th pick to the pick I have him right now, Kalijah Kancey, a guy from Pittsburgh. He's been compared to Aaron Donald, Ed Oliver, lead get-off speed, athleticism, and he's a guy that this Eagles team who lost a bunch of edge rushers in free agency, just a guy who can get off the line quick and just replace those guys they lost in free agency.
Now we're down to our last pick. That's right, the reigning champs, the Kansas City Chiefs. They lost Juju in free agency, but that's not a problem for Ryan Joyce here. Ryan, why is that not a problem?
Yeah, I think losing a guy like Juju to the Patriots is a big loss for the Chiefs that people don't recognize. I think a guy like A.T. Perry, 6'5", big guy, the number 1 receiver right now in the Chiefs is Kadarius Toney. So I think getting a big receiver just going to help Patrick Mahomes just keep being successful in the future and making big plays. And A.T. Perry is a good guy to get.
Yep, and I just got Darnell Wright, the offensive tackle, because Mahomes, we saw that ankle. Obviously, he played through it, but you can't play through injury forever. Eventually, playing on injury starts to wear your body down. So I think that what they need to do is they need to start building that up a little bit, build up the line. They've got a dang good line already. So if you add another solid piece to it, Mahomes doesn't get touched at all, you're unstoppable. I mean, you already got Travis Kelce. He's unstoppable. Isaiah Pacheco, he was great this year. Mahomes is just Mahomes. But thank you all for tuning into this year's edition of Kicking It with Kyle's Draft Edition. Woohoo! Yay! So many claps all around. Yeah. Thank you all for tuning in. This is my favorite time of the year. Thank you, Mr. Joyce. Thank you, Mr. Brooks, for coming in. And I hope you guys all got a little bit out of this. And happy draft week.